I want to introduce my guest today. His name is Jake Chachi from Nebula Genomics. Did I mess up your name, Jake?
Yeah, my last name's Cacciapalia. You can call me Jake Cacci.
Kachi, that's what it was. See, I told you I was going to mess it up. All
It's
right.
all good.
All right, so let's talk about your affiliate program. It is on the ShareASale network. We launched it just in the last few months. Your affiliate manager is Kristen Evans, and she should be watching us on the live version in our Apogee Insiders group. So tell me all about Nebula Genomics, please.
Yeah, and we're really excited to be working with you guys, especially Kristen. She's been very excited about the product and super helpful for us to get things set up, and as well as yourself, Greg. So thank you for that. About Nebula. So where should I start? We are a privacy-focused direct-to-consumer DNA testing company. That is, the best way to kind of explain what we do is if you're looking for a DNA test, given that it's one of these services that lots of consumers are now looking at for things for, everything from health insights to ancestry, microbiome. These are services that are now becoming more and more popular. There are about 26 to 30 million people who have done a direct-to-consumer DNA test now in the United States alone, and that number is expected to grow to 100 million in the next couple of years. So we're offering an alternative to some of the others on the market that are pretty well known, that are advertising on most of the main sort of TV channels, and they're doing a lot of educational work, which we're very happy about. The 23andMe's and Ancestry DNAs of the world. We are specifically focusing on giving ownership and control of genetic data back to the consumer. So we're developing some underlying technology and infrastructure that positions us to basically preserve privacy to the sort of most extreme extent that we can. And that's really like our underlying differentiation, as well as we use some different technologies than some of the other players as well. We do whole genome sequencing, so we look at all of your genetic data instead of specific sort of like niche areas, which these sort of outdated and older tests do. So there's this one version of the test that is done that's called microarray or SNP DNA testing, and then we do whole genome testing. So if you imagine your genome is 4,200, books, these other tests look at specific chapters of those books and give you information about those chapters. And we're looking at the entirety of your genome, all 4,200 books, and giving you that information. So about 1,000 times more information from our test than the other tests.
Okay, so I'm one of those customers that have used, and I'll go ahead and mention your competitor. I've used 23andMe. So I spit in the little vial and sent it off and got my results. Actually found a cousin through that because they had offered up my information to someone else that did the test and said, hey, one of your cousin's name is Greg Hoffman. Do you know him? And we actually did know each other.
Right.
So tell me the difference, in the privacy. So what did I give up by using that other company?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things that are the main concerns of most consumers. There's number one, the risk of discrimination. So data getting into the hands of insurance companies, the government getting access to databases to solve these sort of cold cases, and then not having any real restrictions as to what they can do with the data. And yeah, companies in general selling data to large pharma as a secondary revenue stream. So those are kind of the three main concerns: discrimination, government access, and the selling of the data. And we're basically saying that we're not going to do any of those things, and we're developing the technology to basically prevent those things from happening.
Okay, so I know, and I haven't done this yet, but I need to. At some point, I need to send you my 23andMe results. What can you do with that?
So we have basically 3 paths for someone to take when they come to our site. If you've already done a 23andMe test or an Ancestry DNA test, we can basically take that data and we do a process called imputation. We take the data that you have and we impute your entire genome based on that. So it's basically machine learning or an algorithm that takes a learning model and applies what a whole genome would look like based on the information that comes from your 23andMe data file. What we can then do is provide our weekly updates that we provide to our customers who do sequencing with us. And that's really the main difference, is that we're giving you, you know, something that probably a lot of people don't know is that on a weekly basis, there's new genetic research being done and published in scientific journals. Most of us are not reading those scientific journals. It's really dense. It's hard to follow in a lot of cases because it's in scientific language. So what our team is doing is taking those research studies, we're breaking them down into a very digestible format, so a summary, and then we take the variants that were studied in that particular research, and then we take the variants that are in your actual genome, and we basically make a reference and show you a personalized report from that particular study and how it compares to your genome and how it might, you know, impact your health or give you some sort of indication of things that you might want to look at. And that's a very different, I would say, functionality than a lot of the tests that exist today, which are more or less one-time reports. You look at it once, you see if the variants are not present, and then you're kind of done with it. Or you look at your ancestry results once, and then maybe you make some of these connections that you were talking about. That is not something we do today. So you would ask the question of, what have I opened myself up into making some of these connections or allowing people to kind of make connections around your data? We don't do that today.
Got it. Okay, so what if someone hasn't done one of those tests? What products are available when they go to the site?
Yeah, so today we have what we call our low coverage whole genome sequencing. We have 2 options there. The first is $149 one-time sequencing. So you can order for $149. There's no subscription attached to it. You purchase, you get a kit like this in the mail. You do sort of similar process that you would do. You spit into a tube, you package it up, you send it off to the lab. The lab will do the sequencing, and then you'll get your results about 8 weeks later. That is one. And then on the other side, we have that similar product, which is it's a sequencing. We do low coverage whole genome sequencing, and then we have a subscription that is the weekly updates that are associated with your genome. So that's a package that we basically offer a $6.99 monthly subscription, and your upfront charge is $29.95. So you pay smaller amount upfront to get the kit shipped to you and to get sequenced, and then once you get your results back, we charge you for the year $6.99 per month. So for the full year, it's about $113, and then on an ongoing basis, it's $6.99 a month to receive the updates that we provide.
Okay, just for everyone that is joining us on the Apogee Insiders Group or watching us on YouTube, we are talking to Jake Kachi from Nebula Genomics. The program is on ShareASale. We are listed in the health category. So talk to me about health benefits. Why would someone want to do this, and how could this help them in the future?
Yeah, so there's a few things that you can take away from doing a DNA test today. I should mention that it's like still very early. I mean, there's been a lot of progress over the last 20 years, and I think some criticism and sort of some breakthroughs that are happening. I think at the forefront of science, what's happening is that you're seeing gene editing and gene therapies really making progress with CRISPR and different types of technologies that say, hey, we're starting to understand the underlying biological makeup of human beings to the extent that we can actually edit the genome. And then on the other side of things is the sequencing, which is the reading side of the genome, which is the foundational elements of your biological makeup, where you're basically saying we want to understand what is your genetic makeup and what is that foundational element, and both of those things work hand in hand. So when you get a genetic test done, there are kind of two camps. There's most certainly a group of people who care a lot about the ancestry component and genealogy. There's a large community of people who are hobbyists around finding relatives and kind of mapping out their family history. And then there's the health insight side. I see those things, or we see those things as really working together. We're more focused on the health side of things and health insight. So really like taking the latest research that's being done on diseases and mapping that back to how it may relate to you and your genome. So if you're someone who cares about health insights and getting as much information as you possibly can about your biological makeup, then that's something that we provide by doing a DNA test on you. And of course, we do some of the other things like the ancestry results, but haven't had as much of a focus on that at this point.
So, tell me about the demographics of your customers. Who do you see buying it? Who should be buying it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we've been surprised with this too. So the 25 to 45 group is definitely the highest volume of purchases that we've seen. And that's interesting because we didn't really expect for a younger demographic to be as interested as we've seen. And then there's certainly the sort of second group, which is the 45 to 65 that are most definitely more hobbyists and have a deeper interest in kind of genealogy and looking back at their data. So I think, if I'm looking at that, we're probably a 50-50 split male female, and generally, the persona that we're looking at is a DNA enthusiast, someone who has an interest or has a base level of knowledge around genetics and DNA testing. So they maybe have an understanding of what's available on the market, are specifically, share some of these concerns about privacy and are looking for more data on themselves so that they can do better exploration.
Do you think the younger generation is more concerned about privacy? Is that why they're the number one demographic?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's hard to say. I think there's been a moment in time, especially over the last year or two, with things that have happened with Facebook and the highlights around how data is being shared and the lack of understanding of exactly what happens to, in this case, social data. But this is your most sort of precious data that you could have, most personal data that you could have, genetic data. So it's not clear exactly if the younger generation cares more than anyone else. I think there's maybe a thread throughout every different generation of people who have a lower threshold for or a higher threshold for what they would want to see for privacy. But I do think that there's a moment in time where we're seeing people having a better or deeper understanding of what it means to share data on the internet and looking for solutions that will protect their privacy or at least take measures further than some of the options that are available today. And we believe that at some point the entire ecosystem is going to have to move in the direction that we're in. We're just trying to kind of pioneer the path.
Do you see the customers buying for themselves, or are they buying gifts for others?
Yeah, so I think by and large, the industry is seeing a huge spike in volume for the holidays. It's a very popular holiday gift to do a DNA test and to gift a DNA test. So over this holiday season, we've seen our average order is definitely 1+ kits per order, which is, we love to see that people are actually sharing with their friends and family. And in general, the feedback that we get is that most people who purchase from us are sharing our service with their friends and family. So I think there is a group of DNA enthusiasts who are buying for themselves, but I also think that for the holiday season, it's a very popular time for, it's a nice, easy thing to give as a gift. You have this wrapped up and under the tree, and it's an easy thing to gift. So buying 4 or 5 for the people in your family, and then being able to do the exploration together as sort of like a group and saying, hey, I found this, and did you see this study that came out last week? It was interesting. I saw that, my polygenic score, or the score that they gave me, was this or that. So there's a lot of like sharing, at least among family and friends, and the different information that's being shared.
Does it matter age of the users? Is there a certain age where you don't let them do kids, or I mean, does it make sense?
For sure. We have a basic clause, and I'm drawing a blank on exactly the age, but I think it's either 13 or 18 there's a consent age for which the individual needs to be able to make a decision, and then there's also the parent of someone who's under that age can make that decision. But I think there's still some serious considerations for underage DNA testing because of what gets unveiled. If you have a child who's not of the age to consent and they get tested, then the liability lies on the parent to kind of like open up Pandora's box. So
right.
Our general recommendation is that you leave it up to people who can consent for themselves and not consent for them. But there are certainly, I think, the options for parents to sequence their kids is there, but we don't allow people under a certain age to get sequenced themselves.
Okay. One of the questions from the audience, we're talking to affiliates, so we are giving them information to help pre-sell your products. So what do you want them to communicate? What do you want to see from affiliate promotions?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is around weekly updates on your genes. That's something that's very different about our service, and I think it's easy to kind of get lost in the noise of all of these different types of DNA tests. But really, like, the value of our service is that we're rooted in science. It's credible science coming from journals and papers, and we're distilling that down for consumers and giving them bite-sized weekly updates on their genome. And we're also doing whole genome testing, or whole genome sequencing, which is, as I said, 1,000 times more data than you'd get with another test.
Okay. Well, the team is now teasing me about DNA reveal parties for babies. So let's not go there. Let's see. Yeah. So again, talking with Jake from Nebula Genomics. It's a new program on ShareASale. We are still working on some commission structures. We want to remain competitive, but we are trying to figure out if it's going to work out best as a dollar payout or a percentage payout. So Kristen is going to have the final by the end of the month, but right now it is listed in ShareASale as a $15 payout and a 90-day tracking gap. So she's going to be working with, they're still yelling at me about the baby reveal parties. So talk to Kristen about the payout. It is going to change slightly over the next few weeks. We think this is going to be one of those big programs in Q1. People are going to want to know more about their health. It's the new you, the new year. So we're going to be definitely pushing this program. If you've got any questions, go back to Kristen, or you can ask in the Apogee Insiders group or on YouTube. Do we have anything else? I do not believe so. If you have any specific questions for Jake, all you have to do is contact Kristen. We can get that to you. We are your affiliate managers, but he is the expert. So we will make sure that we give you the appropriate subject matter expert to answer your questions. So Jake, I want to say thank you very much for joining me today. And we look forward to helping your company.
Thank you very much. It's been great to work with you guys, and happy to do it.
All right. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another Apogee Insiders Apogee Live. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.